This is my journey. Inspired one story at a time, a library of leaders was created. It began as a journey to learn. As time went on, it began to grow. All it needed was a platform, and this podcast was created to listen, to inspire, to share. I am a storyteller, and this is my journey. Welcome to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. I'm your host, Steve Anderson, and today our guest is Scott Marshall. Scott is the host of the As Unexpected podcast and president and CEO of the Institute for Shipboard Education, a 61-year-old nonprofit that directs Semester at Sea, the world's leading comparative study abroad program. Prior to joining Semester at Sea, Marshall was a professor of management, vice provost, and interim dean at the College of Business at Portland State University. Scott's lifelong commitment to global education and travel was born out of a study abroad program in Japan as an undergraduate student. Scott, his wife, and their two children sailed on the spring 2017 voyage of Semester at Sea, after which he joined the organization as Vice President of Academic Affairs, and he has served now as President since January 2020. As a business professor, Scott taught, researched, wrote, and published over 40 articles, book chapters, and case studies on management, marketing, entrepreneurship, and international studies. During his time in academia, Scott also taught a wide range of courses in strategy, entrepreneurship, and management. He earned his BA in Business Economics at Willamette University, his MA in International Affairs from George Washington University, and his PhD in International Business from the University of Oregon. So, Scott, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on today.
Steve, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me as a guest.
Absolutely. So let's just start with a little context here. Just kind of fill us in where you grew up. It said in the bio that you studied abroad in Japan. So tell us a little bit about that experience and then how you got to where you are now.
For sure, Steve. I would just start by saying, like so many people's lives, you cannot predict where it's going to take you. I grew up in a very small town in Oregon, family farm, and not much international going on in that small rural village in Oregon. And it was when I went to undergraduate and saw that university, Willamette University, had a partnership with the Japanese university, and that Japan was a preeminent economy at that time. For those around in the 1980s, there was conversation around Japan Inc. So I decided to take the Japanese language and then ended up studying abroad. And for a small town farm kid, that was mind-blowing in so many ways and has led me on an unpredictable pathway, but resolutely committed to international interactions and teaching and learning and so forth. So, you described my background, my bio, but it's led me to just this amazing opportunity to be with the Institute of Shipboard Education and with this team running the Semester at Sea program.
Well, you've certainly seen the world, I think, from, as you said, a small rural town in Oregon to seeing probably more of the world than most of us do. So that's got to be mind-expanding, mind-blowing, just to think of all you've seen.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people who counts countries. There are these people who do, and they love to join the Century Club or whatever. My guess is I'm over that mark, but that's not the point for me. The point is just making sure people have an opportunity to connect with others around the world. I think that that's really powerful for whoever it is, whatever age they are. And so I've just tried to live into that the best I can, facilitating that for as many people as I can.
So now, Semester at Sea is a semester abroad, as we described, and that's for college students. So tell me how you and your wife and your two kids got on one of those in 2017. Tell me about what happened, and gosh, you became part of the organization after that.
Yeah, another thing, just, and that's why my podcast is called As Unexpected, because so much of life goes as unexpected. We love to make plans and then We could wake up the next day and the plans have changed. So I was in a vice provost position at my former institution, hadn't taken sabbatical in a while, and across the listserv comes this opportunity to be a faculty member, a professor on this thing called Semester C, which, given how much I traveled and how much study abroad I'd been involved in, you figure I would heard of, but I never had.
Mhm.
So I forwarded it to my wife, say, should I apply? And she says, sure, why not apply? And lo and behold, I get the position to be a faculty member. My boss at the time, the provost, reluctantly agrees to give me that sabbatical. And early January 2017, my wife and our two boys, who were 7 and 11 years old at the time, get on this ship and set off with over 700 other people on this amazing experience. We visited 10 countries, sailed across the Pacific, sailed across through the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, and it was just mind bending in so many ways and great experience as a family. It was about halfway through that voyage that I learned about this vice president position at the Institute. And I gave it some thought, but then after I got off the voyage, again, consulting with my wife, and I agreed to apply for the position. And lo and behold, I get the job. And here we are moving from Oregon, our home state, to northern Colorado, and I start this job. And then in January of 20, I had the opportunity to become the president of the organization. And we can go into that story as
Yeah.
someone who took over as president of an organization that was facing sort of catastrophic circumstances 2.5 months later.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, that is an amazing story, and and I would also say we've talked about this many times in this podcast, where a lot of people, a lot of younger people come out and kind of want to predict what they're going to do and how they're going to get there and whatever, and I think your example and my example too. I mean, I started as a physical therapist treating patients in Portland, Oregon as well. And and to think that someday I would become the CEO of a large physical therapy company in the Pacific Northwest wasn't even on the radar. I mean, I didn't even know that thing existed. So, yeah, sometimes you can't predict, and you just take opportunities, step forward, and you end up in some amazing places.
You got it. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So, what is it about, that international experience and study abroad programs that are so powerful for students, in your opinion?
Well, I think in the higher level view, they suddenly and powerfully get an appreciation for how small this planet is. Because no matter where you grow up, you spend most of your time in a fairly small part of a community or city. And then you might move to a university and you're going to spend most of your time in a small circumference around there. And it's almost impossible to get a sense of how small this planet is and how interconnected it is without going and seeing it.
Hmm.
You've got to go see it. Zoom is a wonderful tool, but you're not going to get appreciation for the size and importance of this planet without going to see it. The second thing that comes about is you get this deep sense of appreciation for the common humanity that exists. We love to other people. We love to say they look different, they talk different, they write different, they eat different. And so we look at these surface level things that make everybody seem different. But in fact, underneath all that surface level stuff is a core humanity that is the same. And you can read about that in a textbook, you can watch something on YouTube. It is getting out and seeing these people, meeting them, sharing a meal with them, where you deeply understand that that is the truth. Um, and so I just believe in any kind of study abroad, any kind of international travel, where you actually do connect with other people and you get a sense of what this planet is like. What is its size? What's its dynamic? Um, and so I just think it's critical to get as many people to get appreciation for that as possible.
And having been experienced it like you described with your family, I would assume that you see all these college age students on board and I'm intrigued what their attitude and was at the beginning of the trip versus at the end. I would assume you saw some transformation there.
You always do. So for our kids, we certainly did. As younger kids, it was different than it would have what it is for a college student. Younger kids are, the ship becomes their home. Their world's still small, but it still imprints on them when they go and walk through a village in Myanmar, which of course is now closed, but was open at the time we voyaged. When they go and use a vending machine in Japan to get hot tea, which isn't available, in the same way here. When they go on a zip line outside of Cape Town, South Africa, all those experiences imprint on people in powerful ways, and they come away somehow changed. That certainly occurred for our boys, who again were, you know, preteen, if you will. And then for college students, the impact is similar. They're just able to explore more deeply and more widely when they're in these countries and engage in more depth with the local population in more meaningful ways. But for sure, a 20-year-old gets on that ship. They've just come from their college campus, and that has its certain accoutrements and luxuries and so forth. And they visit a country like India that has the massive extremes of wealth and poverty every step you take. And what does that mean? And the noise and the smells, the sensory overload, what does that mean? And how does it imprint on someone? When you go into South Africa and it's post-apartheid, however, the racism and economic inequality is still entrenched in a country that in some ways has a very Western feel, and at the same time doesn't feel like culturally, socially, it's left the 1950s. So all that stuff just powerfully impacts people. And for semester C, study abroad program, it's comparative. So you're testing and retesting your mental models of the world over a 105 days. And it just changes how everyone shows up once they're off that ship, how they're going to show up with anybody they interact with. So they become changed people. There's no doubt about it.
So you hinted at it earlier. So you have an opportunity to join this organization. It's been around for 61 years. It's a nonprofit. And you said it was in trouble. What scene did you come into, and why did you take that leap
Well,
of faith?
well, interesting. When I became president in January 2020, my presentation to the board, my first presentation as president, was not based on crisis. It was based on, the great things we can achieve because the last few years had been decent for the organization. 2.5 months later, the WHO declares a global pandemic and we have to shut down our voyage and we have to cancel 3 subsequent voyages. This small and mighty nonprofit is 90% dependent on tuition, room, and board and 10% dependent on philanthropy. So we have to operate like a business. And when your primary revenue source goes away for an extended period of time, you go into retrenchment. You don't pivot because this history is too long. Your cost structure doesn't allow you to, but you got to find a way through. And it was a great test of me in my role, but also everybody else here as to how we're going to get through an extended period of what some people would think for an organization like ours is potential catastrophe, like ending a 60 plus year history. So that we go into all the self reflections I went into, all the work we did as an organization, how we worked with our board and our senior leadership team to find our way through that. And we did. We're back. We're conducting voyages, but boy, that was a difficult period of time.
Yeah, it sure was. And I'm thinking as you're talking here, no business leader was prepared for that or had experience in that. And so it was all new and different to everyone. Yet, you came from academia, so you didn't really have the business background and whatever. So I would assume not only did you have to, find this new way, but you also had to learn the business part of it, in crisis.
Yeah, I would alter that just a little bit. I had some business background. I was a business faculty member, and I did consulting in the 2000s, and I ran a self-support program within the university system. I never was a president of a nonprofit that ran like a business, but at least I didn't come in blind. Like at
Yeah.
least I understood the fundamentals. I could read a balance sheet. I knew how to look at cash flows. Uh, I understand leverage and
Yeah.
all, all that stuff. But to your point, even when I joined as the vice president of academic affairs, I paid attention closely to how does this organization operate financially? What's its business model? What's its points of differentiation? Who's its competition? Because of that business background, I naturally did all that work around thinking strategically and operationally. At the same time, I had to really scale up my learning around what are cost structures, what kind of cost structures are fixed, what are not, um, what kind of contracts do we have, uh, what are the legal aspects of those contracts. So no question, I had a ton of learning to do, and I did it quickly. But you also have to have a great team in place. Sure, I can read a balance sheet, I can look at cash flows, I understand cost escalators, I understand all that, but I have an amazing CFO, uh,
Yeah.
really phenomenal. And he has a great finance and accounting team, and they do
Yeah.
fabulous work. So I'm not there to do the bookkeeping or to run, our cost of capital. That's our CFO,
Well,
and he
that
does
and
a
yeah, and
phenomenal
that's a
job.
great segue. When I look at this, Semester at Sea, is a small nonprofit, yet it operates, in three continents and 10 countries. It kind of seems like a management nightmare, when you look at it from a business perspective. So, how do you attract and maintain good staff like you just described?
Well, first of all, let's say that the business model is kind of preposterous.
Yeah.
It's a bit silly, right? You combine the study abroad industry with the higher ed industry with the cruise industry, you mash it together and you come up with this semester at sea program operated by a nonprofit. You don't pitch this business model to anybody, and there's a reason why there's only one, right?
Okay. Yeah.
We are clearly mission driven, but we have to operate like a business. So how do we attract people? Well, we first of all live into our mission. We are really committed to a mission that connects people to the world. And there's a lot of people who are attracted to mission directed organizations, physical therapy. This is something
Yeah.
you were very involved in. There's a clear mission of healing people. And, not everybody's going to be compensated at the highest levels, but people who really want to heal people and be in service to people are attracted to those professions. And it's similar here. People become attracted and committed to organizations that are serving some cause bigger than themselves. Second, uh, we combine a competitive salary, not a leading salary, a competitive salary with good benefits. So we are very thoughtful about the benefits package. That includes not only health benefits, but all additional benefits to wrap around it. Simple example, every year we take a company week off. In June, there's a company week off, we shut down. Paid time off. Two months in the summer, June and July, every Friday afternoon, paid time off. Now that you could say is expensive, but it's not expensive when you figure out that you're actually retaining people because of those kind of benefits.
Hmm.
We allow, we have great paternity maternity policy. We have all of these wraparound benefits. We pay for the call map. We pay for financial advisory services, financial planning services. And net, those are not extraordinarily expensive, but it's a thoughtful way to engage people. Listen, we care about you. We prioritize you and your family. We're going to give you paid time off that works for the organization and you will value. And we care about your mental and medical well-being. Uh, so we actually do a really fine job. That doesn't mean we retain everybody, but we have a very low voluntary attrition level. Hiring people is expensive. right?
Yeah,
It's
for
expensive.
sure. Yeah.
Running your
Yeah.
business, I'm sure you're like, what is the cost of hiring and training? It's
Yeah.
extraordinary.
It is. Yeah.
And so you're going to do much better by investing in all of these benefits than you are having a high turnover rate and always hiring and onboarding people.
Yeah, exactly. You know, on the philanthropy side, you know, you mentioned it's only 10% of your resources. But what is your message to the philanthropy world? You know, I'll just be a little, I'll just, say something here that probably isn't true, but, you know, you could look at it from the outside and say, oh, well, geez, there's these well-to-do kids that are going out on this massive vacation and see the world, and where do you sign up for that? So, you know, it's kind of like, what's the philanthropic message that gets people to believe in it and to donate money?
Yeah, so our largest number of donors are alumni who have experienced it. So
Okay.
uh, so what do I say? Well, first of all, only 50% of our students are full pay. That means 50% of our students are on some kind of financial aid. Excuse me. So there is actually a significant need for scholarship funding.
Okay. Yeah.
There's no question. And that actually is reflective of the current college demographic, where you certainly have students that come from households who can pay full freight for their kids to go to school, tuition, room, and board. But there is a significant demographic now in college for whom financial aid is essential, scholarships, grants, student loans, and so forth. And so we have to follow that primary, that demographic shift that's out there. Second, I know that some people may have this perception, oh, that's a booze cruise, that's a party ship or whatever. I
Hmm.
can assure you it is not.
Yeah.
Uh, in fact, I always say, come on board, take a look. I got
Yeah.
nothing to hide. Now, do some of those college kids go into the countries and drink? Some of them do. But they just come from almost a totally dry ship, and they realize that maybe drinking isn't necessary. And so, actually, we have clear evidence that the amount of drinking that our college students do on our voyage is less than they do on college campuses.
Yeah, I would assume that's true because it's not like they're coming from dry colleges usually, right?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
So,
And the third thing is just the mission. You got to find people who believe in the mission if they're going to give you money, right?
yeah,
So they got to be mission aligned, and those are the people you talk to. Two of our largest donors are not alums. They just fundamentally believe in the mission.
yeah, yeah. And so on the financial aid side, is that the universities they come from that are providing that help for them, or is it something that's part of your program as well to try and provide scholarships for those students?
Both.
Okay.
So a student who comes from, let's just say, University of Colorado Boulder down the street, they maybe have a couple of grants or a couple of scholarships, and they get a bit of a student loan. University of Colorado Boulder will allow them to bring that financial aid to our program. And we also allocate about $6 million of scholarships a year. So that student could apply for additional scholarships with us. So it's a mix.
Yeah. It's I do have experience with your program in the sense that we have a very close personal family friend, and their daughter went on the semester at sea, and she's probably around 40 years old now, but she continues to be this world traveler. So she's definitely a fan and just thought it was fantastic. So yeah,
Yeah, great. So she sailed a few years ago. She's in her
yeah, yeah,
40s.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, it seems to me, I'm trying to get my head around your job, so to speak. So
Oh
there's a,
my.
yeah, well, there's a lot of putting these trips together, and you have, there's just constant uncertainty with things out there that you have no control over. I mean, weather, politics, countries, policies, whatever. How do you plan for that, and how do you manage that?
You're absolutely right. The world is complex and uncertainty is always there. So first of all, as I mentioned earlier, you hire a great team. You hire phenomenal people who are great leaders, who are knowledgeable in their area. And this sounds too cliche or too obvious, but it should always be emphasized. You have to have great people. I'm not a big fan of people saying always hire people that are smarter than you, because you got to be smart too. You hire people who are better than you at certain things. That's what you hire. People who
Yeah.
complement you, have deeper expertise in certain areas. And I'm very diligent about who I hire, and I empower them to do their work. I try to stay out of their business, but I set the direction, and I ensure we're keeping our costs under control and ensure we're driving revenue in the ways we need to. It is a complex model that we operate. I'll give you some ideas. So, as you said, we have to design the voyage itineraries. We design them, 15 to 24 months ahead of time. We work with an external agent who helps us look at ports. So we start with health and safety, right? That's the first screen for any country we're looking at. What's the health infrastructure? Is there any civil strife? Is there any kind of disease that we should be concerned about? What are vaccination requirements? What are any potential visa requirements? So we really look at each country carefully. And we also know that we're going to start a fall voyage in early September and we're going to end it in late December. So we have 105 days to complete a voyage. And then we go down to the next level and say, and we want to hit 3 continents. We want to hit 10 countries. The ship then can only go a certain speed. So we start talking about the length of any leg between each country. So there's these layers that we look at when we're designing any itinerary. Um, and we work with an external body that helps us design those itineraries. Then one of our vice presidents works with that company to reserve ports for our ship to come alongside. And then our staff start to work with in-country partners to design in-country programming. We hire faculty from around the country and in some cases overseas and different international faculty. We hire staff. The hiring starts 24 months before a voyage. So it's a long lead time on everything. And then once a voyage is underway, we're always partnering with the team on the voyage who runs the program for us at sea. So we have senior leaders here who are rotating on call 5 to 7 days. I'm always carrying my phone because if something comes up, I need to be available. And we have all kinds of partners, insurance companies, health providers who are always ready to catch someone if they get injured or hurt or what have you. So yeah, there's a lot to it. And I'm only scratching the surface and telling you what it takes to organize
Yeah.
and execute a voyage.
I can only imagine. So when the students are on the ship itself, traveling and so on, is there uh, uh, college course instruction as well? And is it strictly about travel and the countries you're visiting, things like that, or are there other core, topics that you're talking about as well?
Yeah. Our academic partner is Colorado State University, and it's just north of our building here, large campus. Every course offered on semester C is a Colorado State University course. It's been approved by their faculty, it's in their course catalog, and we offer around 70 of those course sections, each voyage. So students, a few months before the voyage commences, they register for their courses. They get their course materials, they get their syllabi, and they're prepped, and then they get on the ship and they begin taking those courses before they hit the first port.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
And so when they're on the ship, they are in class.
Okay. And when you're looking at college age adults here, there's a lot going on with emotions, energy, risk taking tolerance, things like that. How do you deal with their curiosity and let them explore and whatever, but also make sure they don't do something crazy?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to answer that question. First of all, you're right. When a young person is 19, 20, 21, they are going to be more risk taking for sure. And that's the evidence is clear. I was one of those at one point in time. It's been a long time, but I was there, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a little more risk averse now. And so you just know that ahead of time. So, we can start with, well, first of all, we have a great legal contract that deals with any kind of liability. But second, we have a very clear code of conduct that they have to sign. This is allowed, this is not allowed. Now, that's not going to stop them all the time, but listen, they and or their parents have just made a big investment in them. And we have a code of conduct, and we're going to hold to that code of conduct. And then we have a whole process for dealing with disciplinary issues on the vessel. And for sure, if someone goes through that disciplinary process and fails, a few times, we'll kick them off. Like we have all the grounds to do it.
Hmm.
Now, do we catch everything? We don't. Sometimes we learn a month later, 2 months later, or a year later that someone went skydiving, and
Yeah.
that's not allowed. It's not allowed
Yeah.
primarily because insurance doesn't cover it. If they get injured, it's on them. It's on their parents.
Yeah.
But we say it's not allowed, but we don't. We can't chaperone every student in country. So if they choose to do it and no one can find out, that's a risk they take. Um, and then it goes to the learning that they do over time. This is not true for every single student voyager, but it happens for many of them. And that is over the course of a voyage, they start to see that doing all those activities is taking away their opportunity to really learn and grow. That doesn't mean all of them stop doing it, but many of them stop taking silly risks and start to really explore the country and value that time.
Hmm.
And so you see that growth happen, and that is really part of the process as well. Keep in mind that these young adults get on the ship, and most of them don't know anybody on board.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine the social dynamic occurring. They meet their roommate for the first time. They get to know a few people, and at that age, what does it mean to present yourself in this environment? And some of them are a little insecure or trying to act cool, and so they might take some undue risks. But even those social dynamics settle out, and you find your friend group, and you know find that those more risky activities are less important than spending time with your friends doing really cool exploratory things. So
Yeah.
these are young adults,
Right.
but they're growing up fast in this environment.
Well, and I would imagine they probably find some lifelong friends on that trip. So yeah.
Pretty much every time.
So you're dealing with a ship, as we said, and ports of call. Has anyone ever missed the departure date? I mean, even in cruises that in the cruise world, that's always a fear. Like, uh-oh, I overslept or I did something I shouldn't have, or I got too far away from the boat and the boat's gone, and what do I do now? Does that happen?
Rarely. It
Okay.
does, but rarely. More often than not, what happens to one or two voyagers each voyage is that they might lose their passport.
Yeah.
And boy, I tell you, I don't know how many times we repeat, repeat, repeat. Your passport stays on your body,
Yeah.
on your body. Wherever you want to keep it, it's somewhere where you know where it is, and it's somehow right next to your skin. Nonetheless, every once in a while, a Voyager will slip it into a backpack or slip it into the front seat of an airplane, the seat in front of them, that pocket,
Yeah.
and it's gone.
Yeah.
So that can happen. And then in that case, that student or has to stay behind. We always leave someone with them. We don't leave people by themselves. So they can go get an emergency passport at the nearest consulate or embassy, and so they can rejoin the voyage. It means they've fallen behind in their classes. It means they've missed community events. But if they can get that passport renewed, then they can come and they cover their expenses. They fly to the next port and rejoin. So it does happen.
Yeah, it reminds me of a personal experience. My wife and I were in Thailand, and we got an opportunity to go for just the day to Myanmar. And so, as we crossed the bridge on foot from Thailand to Myanmar, there was security hut there, and men in uniform, and they wanted the passport, and then they made us leave it there as we went into Myanmar, and then we would have to get it on the way back out. And that was really hard to do. I mean, we did it, whether right or wrong. We had a guide with us who said, "No, this is the way it works." But still, that was a scary deal. So
Yeah, boy, no doubt, no
yeah,
doubt. That
yeah,
was back in the day when they wanted tourism, probably, and
yeah,
yeah. Well, that's
yeah,
awesome. The two of you
yeah,
got to see at least a little bit of it. Did you go to the
yeah.
Shwedagon Pagoda?
Yeah, and it was. I'm trying to think exactly where we went across. It's been a while, but up there, Chiang Mai and kind of up in that, north, they call it the Golden Triangle up there.
Yeah,
And so we went across there, and it was, just for a day, but yeah, we got to see some things and eat some food that not everybody does. So it was special.
yeah. It is a special place. I hope that someday it resolves its internal challenges and opens back up to the world.
Yeah. So let's talk about leadership a little bit. Do you think there's a difference between being a leader in a nonprofit versus being a leader in the corporate world? Are there differences, or do you think the principles are pretty much the same?
At the core, I think it's the same. I think that some competencies may vary, but I think at the core, leadership is the same. I would offer one thought on leadership. I try to frame for my team and my organization that leadership isn't positional. Certainly, there's differences in authority, but leadership is about how we show up with courage, curiosity, and compassion. And that is a trait, a set of traits that everybody can live into. Um, and I think any leader in any organization that has curiosity, compassion, and courage uh, is showing up as they should. Now, certainly someone who is in a publicly held corporation has to have a different set of competencies than I do. I don't do, calls with investors, for
Yeah.
example. I don't need that competency. What I need to be able to do is show up to the board and talk about, our revenue trends and our oversight over expenses and so forth, and our marketing strategy. Um, but so I just offer that the competencies vary. Certainly, small versus large organizations, their competencies would vary. I have the opportunity of working for a small organization in which there's 45 employees, and I know everybody's name, and generally I know if they have a partner. Oftentimes I know if they have a pet. I
Yeah.
I know where everybody lives, the city they live in. And for people in my position in small organizations, I think that's really important. Now, if you have
Mm.
500 employees, that's impossible. So I get it. Um, but I would say if you have an organization that's got 500 people or 1,000 people or 50,000 people, there is a layer of people for whom you should know all of that. You should know them well.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah.
Um,
And you mentioned it earlier. So this is a 61-year-old nonprofit. You said you have one ship. What's the future look like for this nonprofit? Is it bright? Are you doing well? Are you going to continue to do well? And have you ever thought about, well, maybe we should add two or three or four more ships?
so we are doing fine. I'm always very conservative in my diagnosis and prognosis. We are much better than we were 3 years ago, and the direction is really good, but it's a hard market. It's constant work to get our numbers. We live on two sales cycles a year. We are only selling twice for the same service each
Yeah.
cycle, and there's enormous amount of pressure for each voyage to fill it with as much revenue as possible. So, uh, we are doing phenomenally well in so many ways in our systems implementation, our productivity gains, our marketing presence. All of that is really phenomenal work. But actually, filling our ship is constant effort. Uh, and Ships, to answer the second part of your question, ships are really expensive
I can
and super
I can only
complicated.
imagine. Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Yeah.
and frankly, if we ran a second ship, I'd have to hire almost the same number of people again because the program is so complex.
Okay.
Maybe not 45, but I'd have to hire probably 30 because it's just a really complex thing to do. So you can't just you can't
Yeah.
scale that way.
Yeah. And you don't own the vessel.
We don't. We charter it.
And so when it's not on semester at sea, is that ship doing other cruises in other places?
Yeah, there's a company out of Hamburg, Germany. Well, out of Germany that Phoenix Rising that runs summer cruises. So
Okay.
every fall semester, we get the ship from that cruise company in Germany. And at the end of every spring voyage, we have to return the ship to that company and they run their summer cruises.
Okay. And so and the I'm just curious that the crew that runs the ship, the captain and all the support people and all that, are they employed by your nonprofit or they're employed by the shipping company that you just charter?
So, yeah, it's kind of a multi-layered structure here. So there's an owner of the ship. We charter it from them. And then we hire two companies, a deck and engine company and a hotel and catering company. The deck and engine company hires the captain and the officers and all the crew who take care of the ship. We hire the hotel and catering company to get all the food, to get all the sort of bathroom supplies and so forth, and hire the cabin stewards and the cooks and all of those folks. Uh, so we don't directly hire any of the crew or captain and officers. They're hired by these two companies we contract with.
Okay. Okay, and when you look at this again, it just it seems complex, and yeah, I know you're
You're
laughing, but
understating it, Steve.
yeah. So I just have a lot of questions, but it's just so interesting. And you said that you have to fill that ship. I mean, from a financial perspective, you got to fill the ship. So, when you look at other parts of academia, graduate programs or universities or whatever, there's an application process, and then so my question is, are the applications to do this, are they growing? Or was there a sweet spot a few years ago and maybe not as popular as it used to be?
So actually, our leads and our applications are growing, and they're growing quite well. And what's difficult to parse out is the effects of our marketing efforts, which really have advanced, against the tendency for this current generation of college students to apply for many things
Yeah,
with varied levels of commitment and interest. Universities now, with the Common App, are getting inundated with applications. Students will now apply for 10, 15, 20 places when you know that only the first two or three or four are really ones that they want to go to.
yeah,
But it's just so much easier to apply. We still need to make it easier to apply. We can't make it too onerous because higher ed applications are not onerous anymore. And so we need to reflect that dynamic. And so again, it's hard to parse the extent to which our efforts are leading to jumps in applications versus the ease with which you can apply and the tendency of the current generation to apply to many things.
yeah, makes sense. So now, you're in this leadership role, and but yet you came through with this want or zest to travel the world. So do you still get to travel? Do you still get to travel the world and see things that is on your list?
Uh, Not as much. However, I was in Hong Kong last December while the ship was there. I didn't sail, I just was there while the ship was there because one of our major donors is located in Hong Kong. And this last spring voyage, which ended in April, I was on the ship for just the last week and a half, because we have a number of lifelong learners, these adult passengers who are on the ship, and they're generally good philanthropic prospects. So I wanted to meet
Mm,
them.
okay.
And so I do travel, and the ship at the spring, when I was on the spring voyage, was in northern Spain and it went up to Germany. So I got to see a little bit of northern Spain, which I hadn't seen. But I do travel a lot, but it's really mostly domestically to raise money. And
Yeah.
so that's meeting with donors and meeting with universities.
So, as someone who's not in a college program, but is a lifelong learner and would love an experience like this, can I go on that trip? Can
I
I
would
buy a
love for you
seat?
and your wife to go. Sign
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
that sounds amazing. And we could attend the classes during the day and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yep. But you
Uh,
don't have to take the tests.
that's the best part. No, sign me up. That's great.
Yeah, the lifelong learner community is just so awesome on the voyage because they provide this adult presence that college students actually overall really appreciate. And
Yeah,
the lifelong learners do audit courses, they participate in the community events, they can have this extended family opportunity where they quote unquote adopt college students and host those college students for a dinner or a smoothies or whatever. And the lifelong learners are just an awesome part of it. They
yeah,
become mentors. They sort of become second families for these people even after the voyage. The community on this ship is tremendously unique because it's multi-generational. You can have faculty and staff who are bringing 5-year-old, a 10-year-old. So you have kids in the voyage. Then you have the college students, and then you have the faculty and staff, and then you have the lifelong learner. So the age range can go from 5 to 90.
yeah.
And it's just so cool to see that multi-generational community thrive for 105 days and build relationships that last for the rest of their
Yeah.
lives.
And what is the role or what is the mission of your podcast? Is it to um, find donors, raise money, get awareness of the program? What's your goal for having your podcast?
In simple terms, the goal is to elevate the brand by elevating our alumni. So I bring on the guests are semester C alumni,
Okay.
and they've achieved something of note. So they've, a documentarian. We have this amazing alum who's a film documentarian. We have someone who's an EVP at Warner Brothers. We have someone who's a chief marketing officer at the Not Worldwide, which does these weddings, all over the world. And so I want to elevate the brand by elevating our alumni. They get to tell their leadership stories. And it's been super fun. I also get a chance to connect with alumni who maybe for one reason or another have gotten disconnected from the program. And to your point, I might be able to bring them in as donors in the future that they just never thought about it in the past. So
Mm.
it's just this win-win. And I, of course, get to learn new leadership lessons by talking to them. Even though it's Semester C alumni, the podcast is not about Semester C. It's really about their own leadership journey, framed around how do you show up when things go as unexpected.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Well, Scott, in anticipation of our discussion today, is there anything that I haven't asked or we haven't brought up that you want to be sure to get in the program?
Well, I think we've covered sort of my journey and Semester C and the different audiences we serve, the markets, the challenges we face. I would just encourage all of your listeners to continue to think about and your podcast does a fabulous job of this. What is the core trait of leadership, the core set of traits, and what is the importance of getting people overseas to realize that leadership at its core, is common. It's only at the surface level where we see these behaviors, these manifestations of culture that make it feel different. Autocratic versus democratic versus consensus building, like those are cultural. But then when you sit down with any type of person over a meal, you start to discover that what they care about the health of their community, the welfare of their family, uh, the safety of their country, um, the economic welfare of their people. Like it's common. There is no difference when you sit down and talk to someone when you get past the surface level attributes of anybody. And the more we get out and see that and experience it, I think the better we all can be, whatever role we're playing in society.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, Scott, at this point in the interview, I always ask my guests the same common question. And if it's different than what you just said, or it could be the same, but the question is, in reference to leadership, what is a pearl of wisdom that you could leave us with today?
Well, I oftentimes go back to other people who were just much wiser than me. And one of my favorites is the Tao Te Ching, because there's just these little pearls of wisdom within that. And there's a very simple phrase in the Tao Te Ching that says, not knowing is true knowledge. It's just a very pithy way to say, in other words, you got to keep learning. You
There's
just
so
got to
much,
keep learning.
so much to learn. That's for sure.
Uh, Hubris is the greatest downfall of anybody. Uh, Overconfidence, not knowing is true knowledge. So
Yeah.
just constantly be curious and learn.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, and thinking about your program, it reminds me that I have three adult children, and when we did the, college campus visits, and you'd hear about the programs and the opportunities and the classes they could take and whatever, I remember thinking, man, I had a good college experience, but I want to go to college again, because it sounds so cool. And I can only imagine that in your program, parents are just thinking, man, wow, I wish I could have done this. It just sounds like such a great experience.
Now they can.
Yeah,
Lifelong learners.
yeah, that's a great part of it. I did not know that, and so thanks for informing us about that.
Of course.
Well, Scott, this has been a complete pleasure. Like I said, I had a little bit of knowledge of the program due to the family friend, and she just thought it was the greatest thing ever, and it's so intriguing. And love to have you on today, and just hear about your journey personally. Your leadership pieces that we talked about, since this podcast is about leadership, and then just what a powerful experience that you provide your students and your lifelong learners. So appreciate your time today, and thanks for being on.
Steve, much appreciated.
Okay, and hopefully maybe we'll run into each other down the road one of these days.
I'd love to. We'll see you on
Uh,
the ship.
oh gosh, that would be a dream. Thanks so much. Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Profiles in Leadership. To listen to all my interviews, subscribe to Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and many other popular podcast platforms. Some of these interviews are on video, and you can search YouTube for Profiles in Leadership with Steve Anderson. You can also access the entire library of interviews on my website, orange.coaching.com, and that is orangetheword.coaching.com, and go to the Media Center and click on Podcasts or Video Gallery. You can also enter the website from pilpodcast.com.